Okay, so now coming on to the next important thing that we will discuss is the Morgan's experiments. So majorly Morgan conducted three crosses in which he identified a very important pattern of sex-linked inheritance, that is crisscross inheritance pattern. Now what you need to remember here is that the female that he considered in the first cross was red-eyed, meaning it was a wild-type female, and the male was white-eyed. But surprisingly, all the males in the F1 generation that were obtained were normal-eyed, they were red-eyed. That means the father did not pass on the characters to the son. But notice that the female has become carrier here. That means the father passed on the character to the female. That is because this particular female, if you notice here, is a carrier female. I'm calling her a carrier female because she has an allele for red eye but also carries an allele for white eye on one of her X chromosome, and she got this white eyed allele from the X chromosome of her father. So please remember that if the father is affected, one of the daughter receives the mutant allele and the son is not affected in this particular case. Now, how did he find out that this female was a carrier? Now, in order to find out that this female was a carrier, he had to perform a test cross. So, cross 2 is nothing but a test cross of the F1 female that was obtained in the cross 1. So now this is the female that was obtained in the cross 1. You can see how she has a gene for red eye plus a gene for white eye. If you remember, the gene for white eye was inherited from the X chromosome of her father. It was crossed with a recessive fly because in a test cross you all know that the F1 hybrid is crossed with a recessive parent. So the recessive parent happens to be a white-eyed male, and here you are getting a ratio of 1:1. When I say 1:1, you are getting a ratio of red is to white-eyed individual in the appropriate ratio of 1:1. That clearly tells us that this daughter happens to be heterozygous. And where did the daughter get her white eye allele from? She must have got it from her father. So if you see here, the father in cross 1 is not passing it on to his son but is passing it on to his daughter, that is the F1 female, and therefore the F1 female becomes a carrier. And this kind of pattern where the father is passing on the mutant allele, that is white eye, to his daughter, and if you remember, the mother is normal red-eyed female, so the mother will have a wild type allele which she passed on to her son, and therefore the son is unaffected, or the son is of the wild type in this case. This kind of a pattern of inheritance, you all have to remember, is referred to as the crisscross pattern of inheritance. And how did he know that it had something to do with? Now here we have all written X chromosome, so you know that the genes for eye color are located on the X chromosome. But how did Morgan know that the genes for eye color were located on the X chromosome? That is because of cross 3. Cross 3 is nothing but the reciprocal of cross 1. Reciprocal means you interchange the sexes in cross 1. If you remember, in cross 1 the female was red eyed, but here you are making the female as white eyed. In cross 1 the male was white eyed, here you've made the male as red eyed. So you've changed the sexes over here, but you are getting totally different results. If it was not related to, or if it was not linked to the sex, then just by interchanging the sexes of the parents, it wouldn't matter to us. We would have got the same results. But here we are getting a completely different result. And here I want all of you to observe that the mutant alleles are carried by the mother, and the mother is passing on her mutant alleles to her son. So that tells us that it completes the loop of the crisscross pattern of inheritance where mother is passing it on to her son. And note that the father is having a red-eyed allele, and the father passes his red-eyed allele on to his daughters. So again you see a classical crisscross pattern of inheritance here also. But the most important thing about cross 3 is, even though it is just like cross 1, but the sexes have been interchanged, you are getting a completely different type of a result that shows that this inheritance of eye color has something to do with the sex of the organism, and it was later identified that they are located on the sex chromosome, which is the X chromosome. That's why this is referred to as sex linked or X linked inheritance. Okay.